The night in City was torn apart by countless neon lights, and the strange colors projected on the huge floor-to-ceiling windows of the top apartment, which could not warm up the coldness of the room. Su Rui was red in her feet, stepping on the icy marble floor, and a grand reporters' meeting was playing on the screen of the mobile phone tightly clutching in her hands. Under the light, she held the red-top star Chen Hao in one hand and was shaking hands with the president of the Starry Entertainment with a smile. A golden sign turned a dazzling arc of light from his fingertips. The words in the title that rolled under the screen are "Heart, the top flow of Chen Haotian's bid for a contract with the former Dong family is peacefully settled." Peaceful settlement? Su Rui cursed a self-deprecating sneer at the corner of her mouth. 3 days ago, Chen Hao was still in her office, swearing to express the details of the continuation, thanking her for her many years of gratitude. For his next international directed movie, she used everyone she had slaughtered for over 10 years, and even offended several big shots in the circle. But when he turned his eyes, he took the Kanzhuang Avenue she had made for him and threw himself into the embrace of his death. On the mobile phone, the congratulations and regretful messages from the clerks came out, like poison daggers that swept her. 10 years, from a silent and unspoken practice to a glorious top, Chen Hao has been blocked by the illegitimate family, dealing with countless public crises, and accompanying him through one night after another. She thought she had built an indestructible business community, but she never expected that this empire she had built with her hands collapsed so lightly and easily. The phone vibrated and it was a strange number. She instinctively wanted to shut up, and her fingertips answered in a strange way. What she was most familiar with was the sweet voice like honey. Rui, it's me, Xiaotong." It was Lin Xiaotong, who had known each other for 15 years and had no words. "Is there anything wrong?" Su Rui's voice was dry and she didn't even have the strength to ask the other party why she called with a strange number. "There is nothing big, I just want to tell you something, Zai Kai and I are together." Lin Xiaotong's voice was still gentle, like a steel pin, accurately piercing into the softest part of Su Rui's heart. Su Zakai, her fiancé who has been with her for 5 years and is about to enter the marriage hall. Su Rui felt that there seemed to be something wrong with her hearing, and the whole world was buzzing. "What are you talking about?" "I said, Zai Kai and I are together." Rui, I'm sorry, there is really no way to control the relationship. He said that he loves me, and he is with you because of habit and responsibility. You know, he is too gentle and doesn't know how to refuse." Lin Xiaotong's words brought a faint guilt and a slight show-off. "Oh, by the way, he let me tell you. In order to compensate you, he has already booked you the ticket to fly to Paris next week, so that you can go out and relax. He has paid the money, so you don't have to worry about anything." Every word is like a repetition, shattering Su Rui's remaining rationality. The betrayal of the business, the bullying of friendship, and the end of love, on the same night, were like 3 huge thunders falling from the sky, slashing her to the point of being completely exhausted. She could even imagine Lin Xiaotong snuggling in Su Zai Kai Hyun at this moment, and said the most tolerant words with her best gentle temperament. "Swallow." Su Rui used all his strength to lift the word from his throat, then suddenly slammed the phone, and smashed the phone hard towards the wall. The phone was broken and the screen became dark, just like her life at this moment. The huge empty space in the desperate room rolled in. She walked into the clothes and hats, grabbed a black silk skirt and changed it to a delicate and cold makeup. She was going to a place that could make her forget who she was and forget all of this. Magic Bar, the top-notch sales gold cave in City A, is either rich or expensive. Deafening music and obsessed lights are the best anesthetics. Su Rui sat alone at the corner of the bar, drinking whiskey one cup after another. The spicy liquid burned her throat, unable to relieve the pain in her heart. She looked at the crowd twisting wildly on the dance floor, feeling like a ghost outside the matter. I don't know how long I drank it, but a figure sat down beside her. She didn't turn around, but just glanced at a man's side through the lens above the bar. He wore a well-tailored dark shirt with rolled cuffs that exposed his sleek forearms and a worthwhile watch. He didn't say anything, but sat there quietly. The calm atmosphere radiating from his body was incompatible with the noise around him. The bartender gave him a glass of the same whiskey. The man picked up the wine glass and greeted her in the mirror. Su Rui finally turned over and looked at the man beside him. He had a handsome and aggressive face, his eyebrows were tall and straight, his nose was as sharp as a slim, and his deep eyes seemed to be able to see everything under the illusion light. His eyes fell on her face, calm and focused. At that moment, Su Rui's heart flashed with a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had been watched by such double eyes a long time ago. But this thought flew away and was deeply entangled by the numbness of alcohol. A person? The man's voice was low and magnetic, like the strings of a cello. Don't it look like it? Su Rui pulled the corner of her mouth, with drunkenness and picking voice in her voice. The man was not disturbed by her attitude, but said lightly, "It's not like. You seem to be waiting for someone, waiting for a moment." This sentence inexplicably touched her. She seemed to be seen through all her disguise, and all her arrogance and strength collapsed. Her eyes swelled up without warning. She raised her head and drank the remaining wine in the glass, and the spicy liquid made her cough violently. The man stretched out his hand and patted her on the back. His palm was warm and dry, and was conveyed through thin silk skirts, carrying a reassuring power. Su Rui couldn't remember what happened later that night. She only remembered that she seemed to be the most crazy move in her life through alcohol. She didn't want to go home, and didn't want to face the cold space full of betrayal reluctance, so she followed the strange man. The next morning, Su Rui woke up in a soft place. The dazzling sunlight diamonds came in from the untie the gap in the window, causing her to squint unsuitably. She moved her body and realized that she was lying on a strange big bed, wearing a large men's shirt. The clip from last night flickered back into the brain bit by bit, making her head burst into pain. She sat up suddenly and looked around. This is an extremely luxurious hotel suite with low profile and expensive decoration. Outside the window is the most prosperous financial center view in City A. There was no one around, only a cup of water still in the bed. Regret and difficulty in falling into her heart, she never allowed herself to lose control. Su Rui quickly got out of bed, lifted up her skirt scattered on the ground, and was about to escape from this place that made her feel ashamed. The door of the suite was open from outside. It was the man who walked in last night. He had already changed into a dark gray suit with a straight pen, his hair was meticulously combed, and his body was filled with an elite atmosphere that no one could approach. He was completely different from the silent and gentle image in the bar last night. At this moment, his eyes were as sharp as a keel, with a sense of review and pressure. "Wake up." He opened his mouth, his language so dull that he could not hear any emotion. Su Rui tightened her shirt on her body, stood there in a wolfish manner, and said coldly, "What happened last night? How much is it? The price is opened." She just wanted to end this ridiculous thing quickly. When men speak, not only does not have any vitality, but the corners of their lips are curled up with a playful curve. He walked up to her and looked down at her, his deep eyes as if she had seen through her. "Miss Su, it seems you don't know what's going on." He slowly unbuttoned a button of his suit, took out a document from his inner bag, and sent it to her. "Introduce yourself, the new executive president of the Xinhuan Group, and the largest shareholder of your Tianyi Entertainment. From today on, I am your boss." Su Rui's pupils were tightened. She looked at the man in front of her in disbelief, and then looked at the clear appointment and shareholding certificate on the documents. Xinhuan Group. The biggest financial supporter of Tianyi Entertainment. The target of the one-night stand is actually the only life-saving straw in his career? The thorn of fate made her almost laugh. Just when she was shocked, her crushed mobile phone last night was sent in by a man's assistant. It was precisely a brand new mobile phone with a card in place. After the start of the flight, the first message popped up was an email from the airline. "Dear Ms. Su Rui, the ticket for the AF-117 flight you booked to Paris next Wednesday has been successfully issued." Su Zakai didn't want to leave her in the last phase, and couldn't wait to take her away from City A. Su Rui's face turned pale in an instant, and his fingers shook slightly due to force. All her retreat seemed to be blocked. Shu Ck captured all her reactions in his eyes, and there was a difficult-to-observe emotion in his deep eyes. He waited until she had digested all of this before he opened his mouth again, his voice calmly carrying unspeakable power. "I have a proposal that can help you get everything you belong to you." He put his eyes on her white face and said word by word, "Marry me." Marry? These two words were like a nasty slap in the face, slapped hard on Su Rui's face. She was stunned at first, and then she burst into a low and cold smile, and the corners of her eyes were filled with tears. She raised her eyes, and the eyes that were both cold and self-conscious were now filled with pride and guard, shooting straight at the man in front of her. "According to the end, I don't know if your love is to save a down-and-out woman, or to enjoy this kind of high-level reluctance. Thank you for your proposal, but I, Su Rui, have not yet been down and out to the point of needing to change my tragedy by selling my marriage." Her words were as sharp as a knife, carrying a body of pride and scars. She was willing to lick her wounds on her own and fled to the foreign country, nor did she want to accept such a humiliating rescue. Shu Ck ignored her thorns. There was no trace of her handsome and cold face. His deep eyes were like an ancient well, without rippling, as if he could absorb all her pretended strength. "Miss Su, you've done 3 things wrong." He stretched out a finger, his words calmly and firm. "First, this is not a slaughter, it's a transaction. I need a nominal wife to deal with the family's urging and some business needs, and you need a solid backer to help you turn it around. We each get what we need, fair and just." He put on his head, stretched out his second finger, and his eyes became sharp. "Second, the reason you are down and out may be far more serious than you think. Chenhao's betrayal, Xingyao's cauldron is cutting off the fire. If there is no hand pushing behind this, do you think it is possible? The people you offended are probably not just a few opponents in the entertainment circle. Do you think it's over to escape to Paris? No, that's just the beginning of your final elimination." His words were like a key, and suddenly opened the suspicion that Su Rui had been deliberately avoiding. It is true that Chenhao's job change is too smooth and Xingyao's contact is too precise, as if every step is calculating her softness. There are also Lin Xiaotong and Su Zakai, all of which happened at the same time, and the coincidence was like a carefully arranged drama. A chill broke out from her back, and she realized that she might have been in a huge net, and she didn't even know who her opponent was. Third. The voice of Shi pulled her thoughts back to reality. He took a step closer, and the distance between the two was shortened so much that they could almost feel each other's breathing. The clearwood fragrance on his body was mixed with the absurd breath left last night, causing Su Rui's heart to beat the floor drain without control. "I never give in, I just invest. And you, Su Rui, are the best investment I have ever seen. You have ambitions, wrists, and a stubbornness to get up from the bottom of the valley. All you lack is an opportunity, a platform, a weapon that can make you fight back. And I can give you all this." He turned to her and signaled her to look at the steel-strung concrete forest outside the window. "Marry me, you are Mrs. Chung. This identity is your most indestructible armor in City A. The eager veterans in Tianyi Entertainment will reevaluate your attitude. If Xingyao Entertainment wants to move you, you have to ask the statutory department of the Shu family whether to agree. As for Chenhao, I can let him pay 10 times the price for today's Fengguang." The flame of revenge was instantly ignited by his lightly describing words. Su Rui's brain flashed over Chenhao's sad smile, Lin Xiaodong's false apology, and Su Zakai's cowardly escape. What can they climb up on her bones with peace of mind, but she can only walk away from his country and retreat in disgrace. She was unwilling to give up. 10 years of hard work and 10 years of youth cannot be like this. She took a deep breath, forced herself to calm down, and looked at Shu Cixi again with her visual gaze. "What are the conditions?" she asked. Her voice had returned to her usual settlement. She knew that this was a game with tigers and wolves, but it was better to catch a game than being shared by jackals and wolves and see who could laugh to the end. Lu Cixio seemed to be not surprised by her transformation, and he glanced at the corner of his lips in a slight way. "It's very simple, a 1-year marriage agreement. During the agreement, we play a loving couple in front of the public, and you need to cooperate with me in attending some necessary business and family gatherings. Privately, we don't interfere with each other's lives. After a year, the agreement ends in a peaceful divorce. As a supplement, in addition to helping you with the authority to lead the business, the top apartment in downtown A and 5% of the shares of Tanny Entertainment will be transferred to your name. His assistant had quietly appeared at the door without any notice and passed a beautifully decorated file. The sir received it and placed it on the coffee table in front of Su Rui. Su Rui picked up the agreement and read it carefully word by word. The terms are clear, the rights are clear, and they are as cold as a business contract. Independent property, emotional and physiological obligations, and the coordination of public image. Everything is clearly written, and even the remuneration costs for divorce are accurate too. While this agreement made her feel absurd, she inexplicably felt safe. This is indeed a transaction, pure and uncomplicated with any emotions. At the end of the agreement, she saw the signature of the dragon dance. The word is so powerful that it brings an indescribable force. She suddenly felt that this penis looked familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere. Have we seen it before? She asked subconsciously. Miss Su is the gold medalist of the heavenly arts. I saw you on the interview of the financial magazine and I was impressed. Is that true? Su Rui suppressed the doubts in his heart and stopped asking. She picked up the pen, and the pen tip was above the signature, and hesitated for a few seconds. After this, her life will deviate from the original path and be tied to this dangerous and mysterious man. But she had no way out. The ticket to Paris on the mobile phone screen confirmed the letter, as if mocking her cowardice. She no longer doubted, and used her wrists to write down her name, Su Rui, one by one. When the last pen fell, she felt the atmosphere in the air change quietly. This is no longer a ridiculous after drills, but a skeleton of an alliance. Shusuke looked at the two names listed in the agreement, and a faint light that others could not understand was drawn in his deep eyes. He put away the agreement, took out his cell phone, and a number was passed through Su Rui's face. Is the legal department? I'm the sir. His voice was cold and decisive, and he spoke in an undisputed tone of order. Immediately, I'll pay all the unsettled payments and subsequent resource investments related to the artist Chen Hao and his studio. In addition, in the name of the company, he will start the highest level of complaint procedures for his malicious concessions and expose his business secrets. I want him to pay the heaviest price for this. The phone responded with respect and fear. After closing the phone, Shu Xixing turned to Su Rui, and his expression on his face did not change at all, as if he had just dealt with a trivial matter. Let's go, Mrs. Chung. He changed his vocals naturally and said calmly, you should go to the company. You disappeared all night, and I believe that someone on Tanny's board of directors can't wait to find you trouble. He opened the door of the suite for her and made a please hand. Su Rui looked at him. The man, within just a few minutes after signing the agreement, sent her the first shot of the counterattack. His efficiency and ruthlessness surprised her and made her feel at ease. She straightened her back, regained all her fragility and confusion, and regained the gold medalist Su Rui, who was struggling in the entertainment circle. She walked out of the room, bright sunlight shone through the glass windows of the corridor, waving the hangover haze. This time, she was not a deserter, but a warrior. A black family had already been waiting at the hotel door. The driver respectfully opened the rear seat door for Shusuke, standing on the side of his body, waiting for her to get on first. Su Rui had no worries and sat in. The soft leather seat wrapped her, and the familiar wood fragrance was still in the air inside the car. The car door closed behind her, and a quiet sound came out, as if it was separated from everything that had been gone. She turned to look at the man beside her who was hiding the safety belt. His handsome face was clearly silhouetted in the light and shadow, but it was still unpredictable. She didn't know whether she had signed a contract to save the favor or a paper agreement with the devil. Bin Li is driving peacefully in the car flow in City A, with excellent sound insulation inside the car, shielding the noise from the outside world. In the air, except for the clear woody fragrance, there was only a nearly condensed silence between the two people. Su Rui looked ahead, and the city's thriving scenery was flying backwards, like a beautiful and indifferent dream. She tried to pack the absurdity of last night and the shock of this morning into the deepest corner of her heart, forcing herself to enter the working state. When I arrived at the company, what do I need to do? She broke the silence first, her voice so cold that she could not hear any emotion. This is a deal, and she must be clear about her role and mission. Shu Si looked at the road ahead without turning his eyes, and the lines on the side were as cold as sculptures. Do what you've always done, he replied lightly, be the gold medalist Su Rui who can win a newbie as a top-notch treasure by himself, rather than the failed person who is ready to pack his luggage and escape to Paris. This sentence does not bring any temperature, but is like a cardiac, injecting Su Rui's blood vessels accurately. Yes, she is Su Rui, the one who killed a bloody path in the sword-light drama in the entertainment circle, never giving up. She straightened her waist and back, and her tight fists quietly relaxed. I get it. She answered briefly. The car stopped in front of a red light. Shu Si suddenly took out a silk box from the inner bag of the suitcase and handed it to her. Put it on. Su Rui opened the box, and quietly lay a simple design diamond chest lying inside, the gold carved into a pair of intertwined wings, and the broken diamonds embedded in the center reflected a dazzling light in the morning light. Props, she raised her eyebrows and asked. You can think so. Zhu Xixing's eyes swept over her slightly white face. Mrs. Zhu's identity needs to be a little bit graceful. Moreover, the shirt you're wearing today doesn't fit well. His eyes stayed in her wide mouth for a moment, his language was dull, which made Su Rui's face slightly uncontrollably swell. Only then did she realize that she was still wearing his shirt. Although the buttons were buttoned up, her mouth was still too wide and she could see the bones. She took the breast, silently put it at the mouth, cleverly put it in her mouth, cleverly putting away many cloths, and also covering up the ambiguous embarrassment. The ice frock metal touched the skin, making her awake instantly. This is not warmth, this is a reminder. They are allies and actors, and every play and every move are part of the script. Feng drove into the underground parking lot of Tianyi Entertainment and parked directly in the president's special car seat. When Su Rui followed Lu Ck and reached the top office area from the VIP elevator, the air on the entire building seemed to freeze at that moment. When the front desk lady saw her, she flashed her surprise on her face and changed to a professional smile, but the exploration and gossip in her eyes could not be hidden. Several departmental supervisors who were respectful to her on weekdays were gathering together and whispering something. When they saw her appear, they immediately scattered like a group of shocked birds, with a complex look on their faces. Slightly contempt, sympathy, and happiness. These eyes were like countless small pins, tugging on her skin. Su Rui didn't see all this. She held her head up in her chest, her high heels stepped on the shiny floor, making a crisp and powerful sound, and every step seemed to be stepping on those rumors. She knew that the silence at this moment was more powerful than any explanation. Everyone knows what she encountered last night. Chen Hao's betrayal has been revealed in the business. She has not been able to survive all night and it must have become the company's latest gossip. Now, she appeared in such a dignified place, followed by a strong and unidentified handsome man. The appearance of the Lu Xixio caused a huge uproar. No one knew him, but from his valuable handmade suits and unforgiving temperament, everyone could see that he was absolutely unrestrained. He didn't care about the surrounding private words and attention, but just followed Su Rui's side and accompanied her to the meeting room that symbolized the center of power in a protective posture. The moment the meeting room door was opened, the noisy discussions inside came to an abrupt end. The long-time meeting table was filled with the company's directors and senior directors, led by Wang Zhongde, the company's veteran director. He had always seen Su Rui, a young woman who quickly took over the war, as he was not surprised, and at this moment he did not hide his compliment on his face. General Su, you've come. Wang Zhongde opened his mouth with a slight smile, his words full of difficulty. After such a big incident in the company, you, as Chen Hao's direct responsible person, didn't even go through the phone. Is this your attitude to deal with the crisis? Before Su Rui could speak, another director knocked on the table and echoed, "Dr. Wang said it right. Chen Hao is the biggest ace in our company. Now he can leave, and he still defected to the death-then-headed star. What a huge loss has this caused to the company's share price and reputation. Su Rui, you must be fully responsible for this." For a while, the meeting room was filled with excitement, and all the spears pointed at Su Rui. They had already prepared this dinner party, waiting for her to join the Ronaldo so that she could kick her out of the core of power and divide her resources. Su Rui stood there and coldly glanced at the mouths that were eager to step on her under her feet. She took a deep breath and was about to open her mouth to fight back, and Su Sisho moved one step ahead of her. He walked straight to the empty presidential seat at the meeting table and sat down from behind. This movement made everyone stunned. Wang Zhongda's face darkened and he shouted, "Who are you? Is this the seat you can sit on?" Security. The monks didn't pay attention to his call, but just raised his eyelids and swept the whole scene coldly. The eyes were filled with a natural pressure, which seemed to have dropped the temperature in the entire conference room a little. His assistant walked in at the right time and distributed a document to every director present. "I will introduce myself, the representative of the Xinghuan Group." His voice was not loud and it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. "From today, I will be the executive president of Tianyi Entertainment. Xinghuan Group currently holds 51% of Tianyi's absolute controlling rights." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was surprised. Xinghuan Group. That's the capital giant in the story. They only knew that the company had a major shareholder change recently. They didn't expect that the new funder was Xinghuan, and they didn't expect that the man who got too much in his youth was their new boss. Wang Zhongda's face turned white from red and then from white. He trembled with his hand and picked up the shareholding certificate. The steel prints and signs on it were clear and unmistakable, which made his last pity turn into a bubble. The soundless directors in the conference room were all sound, and the aggressive directors were now like ducks strangled, and they couldn't even say a word. The gaze of the lunar sensation finally fell on Wang Zhongda, his plainness and urgency filled with unreasonable urgency. "Dr. Wang, is that?" he said slowly. "I just heard that you were going to hold President Su accountable." Wang Zhongda burst into cold sweats and said in a panic, the whole world is a mistake. I'm just concerned about the company's losses." "Oh? Is that?" A cold curve appeared on the corner of the lips of the lip. He turned to look at Su Rui, who had been silent behind him, and suddenly stretched out his hand and naturally pulled her to him. In the shocking eyes of everyone, he announced, "Then I think I need to remind everyone here one thing." He put his eyes on his feet, swept over everyone on the scene, and finally said word by word, "Before you doubt my wife's abilities, should you consider your position first?" "My wife?" These two words were spit out from the mouth of Su Sisho, like a deep water bomb, causing huge waves in the deadly conference room. Everyone's eyes ejaculated between Ru Sicheng and Su Rui, and the expressions on their faces ranged from shock to incredible, and finally turned into a complex emotion mixed with awe and jealousy. Wang Zhongda, who was still angry, was now able to stuff a chicken egg into his mouth. The fat and slim face turned into a pig's liver due to congestion, and he couldn't say a word. Su Rui stood beside Su Sisho, and his warm and dry hands held his wrist. A slightly numb flu came from the place where his skin touched. She could feel the entire conference room's visuals were focused on her, and the feelings seemed to be placed under the light, without any hiding. Although her heart was as turbulent as it was, there was no trace of her face. She forced herself to remain calm, faced those exploratory or surprised gazes, and even cooperated to lean slightly towards the direction of Shu Si, and took a defensive attitude. It was a scene, she told herself. Since she signed the agreement, she was no longer just Su Rui, she was still Mrs. This identity has now become her most solid shield and her most powerful weapon. Shu Si was very satisfied with the reaction of everyone. He relaxed Su Rui's wrist and turned it on her shoulders, a movement full of lust and protection. He looked at the whole scene and his voice was as cold as ice. "So, who now thinks Chen Hao's departure is Su Rui's loss?" The meeting room was silent, and the falling flags were heard. Who dares to say it? Su Rui is the same as the vision of the inheritor of the Liu family's financial group, and the wife of the new president of Tianyi Entertainment. This is no different from pressing the self-destruct button in your own career. Since it's not, the language of the sage was not a scattered wave, as if the confrontation of that scene had never happened. Then the continued handling of Chen Hao's contract is fully entrusted to General Manager Su. The Ministry of Law, Public Affairs, and Finance must cooperate without conditions. I do not want to hear any recommendations or slouching sounds. He looked at Su Rui, and there seemed to be a flash of imperceptible encouragement in his deep eyes. President Su, you can now tell the board of directors what you should do. This sudden transfer of power made Su Rui's heart jump suddenly. She understood that the Sir was driving her way. Not only did he use his wife to hold all the attacks on her, but he also announced to the entire company that Su Rui was still the gold medalist with great power and unshakable. He gave her the stage, and now, she came to perform. Su Rui took a deep breath and finally returned to his senses from the initial shock. She took a step forward, stood at the conference table, and her eyes slid from each director's face. Those once contempt and joyful joys have now become stiff resentment and awe. This feeling is so satisfying to die. Dear directors, she opened her mouth, her voice clear and decisive, with unquestionable professionalism and confidence. My handling plan is as follows for Chen Hao's single-side settlement and resignation of Xingyao. She did not have any manuscripts, and all the data and plans were clearly printed in her brain. First, the legal level. The lawsuit process has been initiated. We will file a lawsuit against Chen Hao and his new signature company Xingyao Entertainment on the grounds of malignant violations and exposed business secrets. The amount of the claim will be 3 times the contractual violations, and we will apply to the court to grant all of its personal assets and business activities. We want the entire industry to see the betrayal of the heavenly arts. Her voice sounded, which made the directors present couldn't help but gasp. 3 times the arrears plus the asset loan, this is almost to curb Chen Hao to death. Second, public relations. Su Rui continued, his eyes becoming more and more profitable. Immediately stop all positive publicity related to Chen Hao, and transfer all the public relations resources originally intended for his next stage to other potential artists in the company. At the same time, the Public Security Department needs to prepare a detailed statement, not to point out the name, but clearly convey a message to the public and partners. Tianyao respects the spirit of contract, but does not tolerate any form of breach of faith. We must occupy the high ground before Xingyao's welcome party held by Chen Hao, and shape him into a traitor image of a breach of faith. Third, the resource level. Su Rui's vogue became stronger and stronger. Chen Hao's departure will definitely cause short-term resource vacancy. But what he took away was only himself. The top resources, people and cooperation channels he earned for Tianyi were still here. I will start the new star plan immediately, select potential newcomers from the company, and redistribute until resources originally belonged to Chen Hao. One Chen Hao fell down, Tianyi Entertainment has the ability and confidence to bring out 10 Chen Hao in the shortest time. Her words were clearly sorted out and the death was broken. Not only did she respond perfectly to the crisis, but she also transformed a passive sect into a strategic layout that was actively launched. The atmosphere in the conference room gradually turned from the initial solemnity and adversity to surprise and convincing. This is the Su Rui they know, the gold medalist who can turn decay into a magical world in the face of any crisis. Wang Zhongda's face was hard to see the extreme. He wanted to use this opportunity to trample Su Rui to death. Unexpectedly, in the eyes, the other party not only had no hair, but instead, with the new president's Dongfeng style, his power was stronger than before. He looked at Su Rui's delicate and cold face, and he felt that his eyes seemed to be laughing at his overestimation. After the narration was finished, Su Rui retreated to the side of Ru Sizhu. A flash of praise flashed in the eyes of Xu Xixio. He patted her shoulder lightly, then stood up and said to the entire director, "This is the plan. Are you interested? The duck bird is soundless." "Very good." The Sir speaking with satisfaction, after meeting. "President Su, please stay." The directors were as if they were amnesty and stood up, and the emperor left the meeting room with respect. When they passed by Su Rui, they showed a happy smile at the same time, which was completely different from the attitude before the meeting began. Soon, only Su Rui and Lu Cixio were left in the huge conference room. Just as the strong aura dissipated, Su Rui's tight body relaxed a little. She turned her head and looked at Xu Shizu, with a confused look on her face. "Thank you." No matter what, if she hadn't been him today, she wouldn't have been able to turn things around so easily. "I said, this is a deal." Xu Cixin walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the city under his feet, and his language returned to normal. "I have provided you with the platform, and you use your ability to prove that my investment is not wrong. We are just fulfilling the contract." Su Rui was silent. She knew he was talking about the facts, but deep down, there was an ignorant emotion that was inexplicable. This man entered her world in an almost rough way, tied them up with a piece of agreement, and gave her the support she needed most at the most critical moment. Who is he? Is his real purpose really just to deal with the needs of family and business? She couldn't help but ask again, "Why did you choose me? There are so many famous ladies in City A, and there should be no count of those who are innocent and more suitable to be woman in the world than me." Xu Cixio turned around, with his back light, making it impossible for people to see the expression on his face. He was silent for a moment before he spoke slowly, "Because none of them are you." This sentence was completely unfinished, causing Su Rui's heartbeat to miss another beat. When this sentence sounds, it doesn't seem like answering a business partner, it's more like a confession. But she quickly denied this ridiculous idea. How could a person like this be moved by a woman who has only seen several times? "I don't quite understand what you mean," she said with a snail. There was no direct answer, but changed the topic. "The family will have a family dinner tonight. As my wife, you need to attend with me." "So fast?" Su Rui was a little surprised. "My parents are very nervous. If you solve it early, you can also make you calmly focus on your business." The reason for Xu is unsatisfied. "In the afternoon, let my assistant take you to choose a gift suit and make a look. At 6 p.m., I will pick you up." After he finished speaking, he turned into the preparation room. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and looked back at her. "Yeah," he added, as if he had remembered something, "about Chenhao, let it go, there is no need to be any taboos. But be careful of one person." "Who?" "Lin Ruoyang, vice president of Xingyao Entertainment." The eyes of Shusuk became deeper. He played a key role in Chenhao's ability to change jobs so smoothly. "Moreover, I found out that he has been very close to Lin Xiaotong recently." Lin Xiaotong. This name was like a thorn, piercing into Su Rui's heart again. Her best friend took away her fiancé and was now with her career enemy. Is all this really just a series of coincidences? Before Su Rui thought carefully, Xu Cixio had already opened the door and walked out. The door of the meeting room was closed and left alone in this empty and peaceful space. The sun shines through the glass windows, casting spots on the floor. Su Rui looked at the shadow cast on the ground and suddenly felt that her life was pushed into a completely unknown direction by an invisible big hand. And the person who promoted her was Xu Cixio. He gave her the sword that revenges, and the armor that was moving forward. But what kind of secret is hidden behind all this? She felt that this transaction, which was called marriage, was far more complicated than she thought. And the occasionally flashing and vague memory fragments in her brain seemed to have a connection with all of this. She shook her head and pressed these chaotic thoughts down temporarily. Now, she doesn't have time to think about Usia. What she had to do was to hold the knife in her hand tightly and launch the most violent counterattack against those who had betrayed and injured her. She turned around and walked to her office. When the door was opened, the assistant Mizuki was waiting anxiously inside. When he saw her, he immediately came to meet her. "Sister Su Rui, you're back. It's all crazy outside. Say you and the new boss." Miyu's face was filled with worries and curiosity. Su Rui put his handbag on the table, took off his coat, and said calmly, "The words are true. Go and call the Public Security Bureau Director and the Legal Department Manager to my office. The meeting will be held in 5 minutes. In addition, if you inform me, the new star plan will be launched immediately. Miyu looked at her blankly, watching the woman who had experienced the great changes in her life overnight and was still cold and powerful. She seemed to see that the once superior gold medalist who had been a hero, not only came back, but was even more brilliant than ever. After the door of the meeting room was closed behind him, Su Rui did not leave the company immediately. He took a special elevator to the underground parking lot and sat in the black Finley, without telling the driver to start the car. He leaned against the back seat, closed his eyes, and rubbed his eyebrows. The shape of the tent and strife in the conference room just now faded away, and replaced by a piece of fatigue and confusion that could not be seen. On, the assistant and driver, carefully observed the expression of his boss through the rear view. "Sir, are we going back to the group headquarters now?" Su Rui didn't have any eyes, but just asked lightly, "What's the matter with Lin Ruoyan?" On immediately sat upright and reported, "I found out clearly. Lin Ruoyan is the illegitimate son of Chairman Lin of Xingyao Entertainment. He has never been recognized by the family and is also subject to scrutiny in the company. He is very ambitious and is eager to make achievements to prove himself. This time, Chenhao's plan to change jobs was led by him, and he wanted to use this to defeat Tianyao and gain more power for himself to fight within Xingyao. Where is Lin Xiaotong?" The voice of the rumor became even colder. "Miss Lin. She and Lin Ruoyang are cousins, but their relationship has always been very distant. Recently, the two have been in contact with each other very frequently. We found out that Lin Ruoyang gave Lin Xiaotong a deposit of money, and the time just before Su Zakai proposed to Miss Su. Moreover, a design studio under Lin Xiaotong's name also recently received several large orders for Xingyao Entertainment. So, this is a betrayal that should be externally connected." Lu Sisu opened his eyes quietly, and a cold light suddenly appeared in his eyes. For money and business, Lin Xiaotong did not hesitate to sell her friendship with Su Rui for many years, and even joined forces with Lin Ruoyang, becoming the last straw to crush Su Rui. And the Su Zakai, who seemed to be gentle and vulgar, has probably been considered by this cousin and has become a chess piece to be used. "Sir, do we need to deal with Lin Xiaotong and Su Zakai?" On asked. Shu Sizu was silent for a moment and shook his head. "No," his voice returned to a calming sound. "These people are treasures belonging to Su Rui. What I want is to let her tear the masks of these people and get back the dignity she belongs to. We just need to put a knife on the time she needs it." He didn't want Su Rui to feel that he was a bird wrapped in a golden silk pot, and he was holding all the wind and rain outside. He wanted her to be the proud horn, fight Changkong by himself, and tear the enemy apart by himself. And he will be her most realistic backing, ensuring that no matter how high she flies, she will not fall to pieces. But, he turned, his eyes turning sharp, "Stay Lin Ruoyan. I don't believe that he planned all this for only Chenhao. There may be others behind him. In particular, find out if there is anything that he shouldn't have to do with the inside of the Lu Group." The undercurrents within the Lu family financial group were surging. This time he landed in the sky, not only for Su Rui, but also for the opportunity to use this opportunity to slap the insects hidden in the dark. He felt that the slander for Su Rui might be just an opening for a bigger storm. "Yes, sir." On responded respectfully. At 3 p.m., arrange the stylist and gift suit to this address. The stylist sent the positioning of Su Rui's office to On. The work must be prepared carefully and no mistakes can be made. Tonight's family dinner is another tough battle for her. On looked at the address on his phone and knew it. The gentleman's thoughts are always much more detailed than what he shows. Instead of bringing Su Rui to the strange-looking sand dragon, he chose to let the team go to her office just to give her enough space and a sense of security. After explaining everything, Shu Siki leaned back to the back of the chair and closed his eyes to restore his spirit. Outside the car window, the sunlight in Cydia was just right, but what was floating in his brain was the afternoon when the rain was rippling 10 years ago. Su Rui, who was a girlish school uniform, stood stubbornly in front of him, with a slight look in her eyes, and refused to let it fall. "Rusi, are you leaving?" she asked. At that time, he was not the cold-blooded entourage family now, but just a teenager who was about to be sent to the country by his family. He looked at her, his heart was like a knife cut, and he could only click. "I'm sorry, Rui. I'm sorry if I don't want yours." She cut him off and stuffed the hand-edited, rough hand into his hands. "You promised me that you'll take the A-level exam together. You're such a trick." After she said that, she turned around and ran into the rain, never turning back. And he held the hand that was still holding her warm until he was taken away by the family's protective lens. Later, he heard something was wrong in her house, and later they lost contact. When we meet again, she has become a strong female figure in the entertainment circle who is so popular that she doesn't remember him at all. A car took away all her memories of the Qingyan first affair between them. The eyes were as deep as the sea. He unconsciously touched the watch strap on his left wrist. Under the expensive genuine leather watch, what is hidden is the hand that has faded and has been treasured for 10 years. He came back to revenge and to get everything he belonged to him. But more importantly, it is to find the treasure he lost to for 10 years. Whether she remembered it or not, he would return to her world, protect her, and compensate for the money she had in that year. This time, he would never let go. At 3 p.m., the sun was just right. Su Rui's office was busy. She just concluded a meeting with the Ministry of Law and Public Affairs and finalized the specific details of the first wave of argumentative attacks and legal actions against Chen Hao. Assistant Mizuki is following her instructions to contact several potential newcomers in the company to prepare for the internal trial of the new star plan. The door of the office was knocked lightly, and Mizi walked over to open the door, and then a small sound of surprise came out. Su Rui raised her head and saw an elegant middle-aged woman wearing a Chanel suit standing at the door, followed by a young man carrying a huge makeup box, and 2 assistants pushing a whole row of high-end gift suits. "Please ask, is it Miss Su Rui?" The woman who led the lead smiled and spoke gently and professionally. "I am Mr. Shu's personal image consultant Lisa, and I am ordered to take care of your look tonight." Su Rui was stunned for a moment before remembering what Ru Sishio had explained in the morning. She glanced at the clock on the wall and it was already 3 o'clock. Time is so fast. "It's me, please come in." She clicked the head and signaled me to arrange a place for them. Miyu hurriedly cleared the small guest room next to the office, allowing Lisa's team to move all the equipment in. The row of gift suits with dust bags, the exposed brand identity is enough to make any woman's heart beat faster. Chanel, Dior, Valentino, are all the latest haute couture series of the season. "Miss Su," Mr. Shu instructed that although the venue tonight is a family dinner, it means extraordinary to you, so the style must be harmonious and not lose the atmosphere. Lisa asked the assistant to dress up the gift clothes, and looked at Su Rui with a professional look. Mr. Shu also specifically explained that your skin is cold and white, and your temperament is cold, which is not suitable for 2 sweet colors. Su Rui heard Lisa's words and felt a strange feeling in his heart. Shu CK, had he even considered all these details? What he knew about her seemed to be far beyond the business partner. Just this one. Su Rui's eyes swept across a row of Chinese suits, and finally stopped on one of the black silk long skirts. The skirt is designed with no extra decoration, and it is decorated with its perfect tailoring and top-grade fabric, giving off a low-key luxury and high quality. Most importantly, this simple and powerful style is her most accustomed and good at long-term driving. Lisa's eyes flashed with praise. "Miss Su has a good eye. This skirt is a collection of Alexander Vauthier and best serves your temperament. Then, let's start with skincare and makeup." For more than 2 hours, Su Rui was like a delicate figure, allowing Lisa's team to perform magic on her face and hair. She closed her eyes, emptied her brain, and enjoyed the silence of this rare moment. After running around all day, she really needed some time to ease and prepare. She knew that the family dinner was not only as simple as a meal. That was her debut as Mrs. Liu, another battle without nitros. What she wants to face is the mysterious family of the Lu Sishu, which is the most advanced privileged circle in City A. She couldn't make any mistakes. When she opened her eyes again, the people in the mirror made her a little strange. The makeup is exquisite and clear, just rightly highlighting the advantages of her facial features. A touch of ancient red lips adds a bit of clarity to her cold atmosphere. The slightly curly long hair was loosely tied up, leaving a few long hair hanging around the head, looking lazy and elegant. I changed into the black silk long skirt, which hung down to the ground, perfectly outlining her delicate and graceful figure. Lisa put on a pair of diamond earrings in the same series as her chest, and the light flashed in her ears, illuminating the darkness of the whole body. Perfect. Lisa satisfies her work. Miss Su, you're like you were born for this skirt. Miyu was stunned by the sight and murmured, Sister Su Rui, you are as beautiful as the heroine in the movie today. Su Rui looked at herself in the mirror, and the haggardness and wolves that were caused by betrayal had been covered up. Instead, it is a calm and powerful atmosphere. She is no longer the victim of the Emperor's misfortune, but the queen who is ready to set foot on the battlefield. At 6 o'clock in the evening, her cell phone was on the right time. It's the sage. I'm here, under the building. His voice was as quiet and calm as ever. Okay, I'll get up and down. Su Rui picked up her handbag, thanked Lisa and her team, and then walked out of the office with Mia's worshipful eyes. When she walked through the brightly lit office area, all the employees who were still working overtime stopped their work and their eyes were attracted by her. If Su Rui is the female demon in the field who has been fully open during the day, then at this moment she is the noble and cold black skyhorn. She walked into the VIP elevator, looked at herself reflected in the lens, and took a deep breath. The elevator door opened at the underground parking lot, and the familiar black Finley stopped quietly. Listen beside the door, he changed into a serious suit and wore a dark blue sheep coat, with a tall figure and a distinctive temperament. Seeing her coming, he stood up straight, with a flash of shock in his eyes. He pulled the door for her, his eyes falling on her delicate makeup and the long skirt that perfectly supported her temperament, and his throat slammed unconsciously. It's beautiful. He sincerely praised, his voice a little more than usual. Su Rui's head is considered to have accepted this praise. She tilted her waist and sat into the car, and a warm feeling came over her face. The warmth in the car was very open, and there was a soft sheep shawl on the seat. The sir then got on the car and handed her the shawl. It may be windy at night. She took the shawl and draped it over her shoulders. This delicate body sticker made her originally a little nervous mood calm inexplicably. The car is safely driven out of the parking lot and imported into the city's evening rush hour flow. Su Rui looked at the flashing neon lights outside the window, feeling confused. A few hours ago, she was still at the other end of the city, savoring the feeling of being abandoned by the whole world. Now, she is sitting in a luxury car and going to attend a family dinner at the top financial group in City A. Life is sometimes so absurd and incredible. The car headed westward, drove away from the bustling city center, and entered a quiet and heavy villa area. This is the location of the famous mansion of the Chinese family. With the car, she drove into a fierce door with a fierce ring, and a scattered light and a castle-like garden appeared in front of her. Looking at the magnificent mansion in front of him, Su Rui's heart raced uncontrollably. She knew that behind the door was the new and unknown world she was about to face. Binley walked along the trimmed Linchi Avenue and finally stopped in front of a main house with warm lights. The car stopped and an old man wearing a housekeeper's uniform with gray hair but energetic hair quickly stepped forward and respectfully opened the door for Shu Sitsi. Young master, you are back. The butler's voice was gentle and respectful, and his eyes immediately fell on Su Rui in the car. There was a flash of curiosity in his eyes, but he did not lose his gratitude. Shu Si got off the car, walked to the other side, opened the car door for Su Rui, and naturally stretched out his hand. Su Rui hesitated for a moment, and still put his hand in his wide palm. His palms were warm and dry, and a steady force came across his fingertips, surprisingly calming the last uneasiness in her heart. Uncle Fu, this is my wife, Su Rui. Su was introduced to the butler. His temperament was dull and he had unquestionable affirmation. A perfect surprise appeared on Uncle Fu's face, and it immediately turned into a gentle smile. It turns out that it is the young lady, and you are welcome to go home. Lao Yu and his wife are already waiting for you. His attitude was respectful and he was not negligent. Su Rui greeted Uncle Fu's head slightly. She followed Shu Sishio, stepped on the white jade platform with light like a mirror, and walked into this magnificent mansion. As soon as you enter the door, you will see a low-key luxury. A huge crystal sling was hanging on the top of the high dome, with soft and non-glare light. Under the foot is a handmade carpet imported from Italy, so thick that you can hardly hear the footsteps. There were several seemingly casual pictures hanging on the wall, and Su Rui could tell at a glance that some of them were real masters of famous people of all cities. Everything here is silently showing the unpredictable foundation and wealth of the Chinese. On the leather sand of the living room, a pair of elegant middle-aged couples were sitting. The man is about 60 years old, wearing a Chinese-style silk buckle top, with a majestic face and a powerful person without anger. He is the helmsman of the Lu family financial group, Yu Zhenhua. The woman beside him should be the mother of Shu Sishio, Li Wenpei. She was well maintained, looking over 40 years old, wearing a cheongsam with elegant tailoring. Her eyebrows and eyes were somewhat similar to those of the Sun Si, but her temperament was more gentle, but her double-scrutinized eyes were shrewd and picky. Seeing them coming in, Qi Wenpei immediately stood up, with a smile on her face. "Si Zhu, you kid. You don't speak clearly on your phone, just said you want to bring someone back. This is..." Her eyes fell on Su Rui, looking up and down, as if evaluating the value of a product. Ru Sizu held Su Rui's hand and tightened it for a few minutes, took her to her parents, and said in a deep voice, "Dad, Mother, this is my wife, Su Rui. We have already obtained the certificate." This sentence was like thunderstorming on the ground, making the air in the entire living room solidify. Lu Zhenhua was originally tasting tea, but he put his hands on the table with a cup of tea heavily, making a crisp sound of kicking. The smile on Qi Wenpei's face froze. She looked at her son in disbelief. "What are you talking about? Have you proved it? Why don't you discuss this big thing with your family?" Her voice suddenly rose, and the slightest shock in her language were revealed. In her opinion, the marriage of Shu Sishio should be a strongly connected business marriage, and the object should be the daughter of the door, rather than a Su Rui whom she had never heard of and did not know where it appeared. "I can decide my marriage myself." The attitude of the monk was still strong and there was no reluctance. "I brought her back today to inform you, not to ask for your consent." "You, what kind of attitude are you?" Shu Zhenhua finally opened his mouth, his voice loud and majestic. "The daughter-in-law of the Shu family. Can anyone be treated as a casual person? Miss Su, right? Please ask which daughter-in-law you are. What is the family doing?" This question full of pressure came directly against Su Rui. Su Rui felt a little confused and knew that this was her first test. She raised her head and greeted Shu Zhenhua's review gaze without being humble and arrogant. Her voice was clear and calm. "Hello, Dong Zhu, my name is Su Rui. I am not a daughter. My parents died early. I have worked hard until now. Currently, I am serving as the director of the Tianyi Entertainment." She has no secrets or powder. She knew that in front of a family like the Chinese family, any rights and disguise would only make herself even more ridiculous. Honesty is her only weapon. Upon hearing her answer, Qi Wenpei's face became more and more difficult to see, and a touch of unconcealed contempt appeared on the corner of her mouth. "A silencer? He is the servant who was beside his son. Sitsi, are you crazy? How can we all marry a woman of such a background into the door? Mom." The face of the lunar face darkened, with a warning in his voice. "Su Rui is my wife, please respect her." "Respect? Is she worthy?" A pointed female voice came from the stairs. Su Rui looked at her voice and saw a young girl wearing a pink princess dress and beautiful makeup holding the handrail of the stairs, looking down at her from a high place, her face full of enemies and disdain. This should be the sister of Lu Sishio, Lu Anqi. Brother, when did your vision become so bad? He just wanted so many celebrities, but he found a woman in the entertainment circle. Anchi, Lu twisted her waist and walked down the building, looking at Su Rui without any politeness. I look pretty good, but at first glance she is the kind of scheming woman who wants to rely on a man to get on the top. This mean word brought the atmosphere of the living room to the ice point. Uncle Fu and the people around him all lowered their heads and did not dare to show up. Su Rui's fingers were quietly clamped on his body. She expected that this family dinner would be difficult, but she did not expect that the attitude of the family would be so direct and humiliating. From Chia Wenpei's light vision, to the question of Lu Zhenhua, to the humiliation of Lu Anqi, the family seemed to have regarded her as an invader and an enemy. Just as she was about to open a counterattack, the silent Xu Sixio suddenly laughed. It was a very cold smile, without any temperature, making the air around it seem to be burning. He relaxed Su Rui's hand, walked to Yang Anqi, raised his hand and gently brushed away the dust that did not exist on her shoulder. His movement seemed gentle, and his eyes were scary. Anqi, his voice was very light, carrying a chilling threat. What did you say just now? I didn't hear it clearly, you'll say it again. Lu Anqi was shocked by his way. She was a little afraid of this brother since she was young. At this moment when she was staring at him, her face turned pale and her lips were trembling, and she couldn't say a word. I didn't say anything. Oh? Is that? Zhu Sizu's fingertips gently planned her face and said in a quiet manner, it seems that I heard it wrong. However, I still want to remind you. Su Rui, she is your eldest sister-in-law and the young lady of the Lu family. In the future, you must learn how to respect her. If I hear you say something disrespectful to her again. He didn't say it, but that unscathing threat was more important than any ruthlessness. He turned over, revolved Su Rui's hand, took her to the sofa and sat down, and sat by himself, forming a protective posture. He looked at his family with different faces, and finally fixed his eyes on his father, De Zhenhua. His language regained its calmness, and he carried an unreasonable decision. Dad, Mom, I'll say it again. I'm married to Su Rui after a careful decision. No matter what her origin and what kind of past she has, it can't change the fact that she is my wife. I hope you can accept her. If not, it doesn't matter, I will take her out. I will move out. Whoever you want to give to the Lewin family, I don't care. In this conversation, it's no different, so I'm using the future of the entire luxury group to make bets. Xu Zhenhua was so angry that he shook his body, and pointed at him and said, You are such a rebellious son. For a woman, you don't want any family or company? Of course I want home. But my home must have my wife. Ru Xi's gaze fell gently on Su Rui. The focus and affection made Su Rui's heart suddenly bleed. She knew that this was acting, but at this moment, the gentleness in his eyes really made her almost addicted to it. He was protecting her, in his own way, fighting the pressure of the entire family. Just as the atmosphere was stalemate and as soon as the touch was about to break out, a warm voice came from the door, breaking the deadlock. Brother, don't say anything in advance when you come back. It's so hot at home. A man of similar age to Xu Sixing but with a completely different temperament came in. He was wearing a beige casual dress and a pair of gold-shaped glasses. He had a handsome face and a gentle smile, giving people a feeling of spring. Su Rui knew that he was the second son of the Lu group, and was in charge of the charity and cultural blocks of the group. He had a very good image in front of the public, which formed a clear contrast with the cold-blooded and powerful image of the Lu group. Xu Sixia walked in, first greeted his parents, and then his eyes naturally fell on Su Rui. He was shocked, but he was quickly replaced by a graceful smile. I guess this is the eldest sister-in-law, right? Hello, I am Sixia, Sizu's younger brother. He took the initiative to extend his hand to Su Rui, with a friendly and honest attitude. Brother's vision is indeed very good. Sister-in-law is more beautiful than on the financial magazine. His appearance and friendly attitude were like a warm current, relieving the atmosphere of the living room. Su Rui also relaxed his voice and shook hands with him with a look. Hello, I'm Su Rui. When Chi Wenpei saw his little son coming back, his face became much more peaceful. She took Shirzai's hand and complained, "Look at your elder brother, it's getting worse and worse. For such a big thing, I'll do it." Sijia smiled and patted his mother's hand, and said calmly, "Mom, my elder brother has always been at ease in his work. Besides, marriage is a good thing. Since my elder brother has agreed to my elder sister-in-law and we are family members, we should bless them." He turned to the elder brother, "Dad, do you think so? My elder brother finally came back with someone he likes, we can't scare him away, right?" His few words were reasonable, which not only gave the Lu Si to the Taiwan level, but also calmed down the affection of his parents. Xu Zhenhua snorted coldly, although his face was still difficult to see, he didn't say anything more. A family storm seemed to be resolved by Shirzai in a lightly describing manner. Dinner was held in a quiet and serene atmosphere. The long dining table was filled with exquisite dishes, but almost no one had the heart to taste. Xu Zhenhua and Xu Wenpei put on their faces throughout the whole process, and Xu Anqi kept staring at Su Rui with the light at the corners of her eyes. Only Shirsu and Shirsu talked normally, and occasionally the topic would be drawn to Su Rui. The sage is constantly taking care of Su Rui Butsai, taking care of her husband in a very meticulous way. However, Shirzai asked some interesting stories about the entertainment circle from time to time, and his attitude was harmonious, so that Su Rui would not be too embarrassed. After eating, Chi Wenpei made an excuse that his body was not suitable and went upstairs to rest first. The Lu Zhenhua called the Lu Si into the book room, which clearly showed that it was necessary to have a single conversation. When Yang Anqi saw this, she also found an excuse to slip away. In the huge living room, only Su Rui and Shirzai were left. Sijia poured Su Rui a cup of hot tea and smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, don't mind. My father is so angry, and there is nothing bad about it. Brother, he hasn't been so happy for a long time." Su Rui picked up the teacup and gave a warm touch at his fingertips. She looked at the gentle and vulgar man in front of her and said lightly, "Thank you, I just helped us to resolve it." "Family, what are you saying?" Shirzai smiled and pushed the lens on his nose. There was a gentle light in his eyes behind the lens. "When I say that, I still have to thank my sister-in-law. Since my elder brother took over Tianyi, I have been worried that he would make the chickens jump there. After all, he couldn't understand the entertainment circle. I feel much more at ease with you by his side." His words sounded very sincere, but Su Rui caught a flawless one from it. She asked without hesitation, "I heard what you mean, it seems that your elder brother took over the heavenly arts is not his own intention?" Shirzai sighed and showed a helpless and bitter smile. "It's really not a pity. My elder brother was forced to go there by my dad. Although the Tianyi plate is not big, it's very deep, and there are many internal factions. It's a potato that can make a spoil. My dad probably wants to use this to train his elder brother." However, he turned around and looked at Su Rui, with a slight exploration in his eyes. "I think there seems to be another reason for the eldest brother to go to Tianyi. For example, it was for someone." His eyes pointed, causing Su Rui's heart to stumble. She held the teacup and raised her hand slightly, and her face remained calm. "Is that right? I think that the land is always just a pure businessman, and everything she does is based on interests." Shirzai smiled, and the smile was meaningful. "Maybe. However, my elder brother who is above the top and never takes women seriously is not a simple character for you to fight against the entire family, sister-in-law." He stood up and sorted out the corners of his clothes. "It's getting late, I have something to deal with. Sister-in-law, please take this place as your own home." After saying that, he also turned away. In the living room, Su Rui was the only one left. She sat on the soft sand, surrounded by silence and luxury. She recalled everything that happened tonight, the enemy of the family, the maintenance of the Sur, and the meaning of the Sur. She felt like she had entered a huge mystery. Everyone was wearing a mask, and every word she said had hidden mystery. And Lucy, that's what is the real face of this man who brought her into the palace. At this moment, the door of the book room opened. Shusiki walked out from inside, his face slightly dark, and it was obvious that he had just talked with his father that he was not happy. He saw Su Rui sitting alone in the living room and walked straight over. "We're going home," he said, his voice a little sad. "Okay." Su Rui stood up and put the cup of tea that had been slightly curled back on the table. When they turned around and prepared to leave, the butler Fu, who had been standing in the shadow, suddenly took a step forward and handed Su Rui a small and exquisite wooden box. "Mrs. Young Madam," Uncle Fu's voice was very low, carrying a difficult-to-see respect, "this is what the old lady asked me to transfer to you. She said that this is something the daughter-in-law of the Chinese family should have." Su Rui took the wooden box in confusion and opened it. There was a jadeite of excellent quality lying in it. She raised her head and looked at Uncle Fu, then looked at Shu Sishio beside her. There was also a flash of distortion in Lu Sishio's eyes, and he didn't seem to have expected that his mother, who had always been dissatisfied with Su Rui, would make such a move. The old lady said, Fu Bo continued, "She will let you come back with the eldest son when you have time." This sudden change made Su Rui stunned. How could that Chi Wen-pei, who was just contemptuous to her, suddenly give such a valuable meeting and say this? Which side of this family is real? On the way back, the atmosphere in the Vinley car was more subdued than when it came. Su Rui held the wooden box with jadeite in her hand, which felt warm, making her feel like she was holding a piece of brazed iron. Zhu Wenpei's sudden show of kindness was like a stone thrown into the lake, stirring up circles of ripples in her heart, filling the unknown and uneasy. This unreasonable change must be hidden behind it that she cannot understand. The Lucy opened the car, and the lines on the side became colder and harder under the continuous passing city lights. He was obviously confused by his mother's movement, his eyebrows slightly frowned, as if he was thinking about something. "Don't think too much." He suddenly opened his mouth, breaking the silence, and his eyes were still focused on the road ahead. "My mother's attitude doesn't have to be taken seriously. I just walked past the field after taking the kid." "Pass?" Su Rui turned to him, with a slight sarcastic expression in his language. "General, your grand passance is really expensive. I don't think your mother will give the jade keel, which represents the identity of the Shu family's daughter-in-law, to a woman she looked down upon from the bottom of her heart." Her words were thorns, which were both venting the night's experience and doubts about this fake marriage. I was silent for a few seconds, as if I was considering the words. I admit that my mother's behavior was abnormal. I will find out the reason. He stopped the car calmly in front of a red light and turned to look at her, his deep eyes looking particularly seriously in the night. "But before you find out, you only need to remember one thing: no matter what they do or say, it will not affect our agreement, nor my promise to you." His eyes were too focused, which made Su Rui's heart beat the floor drain without control. She opened her sight lines, looked out the window, and said lightly, "I understand, this is a deal." She kept reminding herself with this sentence so that she would not lose her direction in this carefully arranged drama. The car finally stopped at the underground warehouse of the top apartment in the central area of downtown A. This is not the apartment where Su Rui lived before, nor is the general suite of the hotel where Sun Sike was. "Where is this?" Su Rui asked in confusion. "Our new home." The sermon explained the security belt and said in a plain manner, "According to the agreement, we need to play a loving couple. Separation is obviously not suitable. The security here is tight and paparazzi cannot enter, which can save a lot of unnecessary trouble." He said it was reasonable, and Su Rui had no choice but to rebel. She followed the Lucy to walk into the special elevator and reached the top floor. The elevator door opened, and in front of her was a luxurious top-floor complex apartment with a very simple decoration and style. Outside the huge floor-to-ceiling windows is the dazzling night view of the entire city A. "Your stuff will be moved tomorrow from your original residence." Sun Sike took off his coat and put it on the Xuanwan hanger. "The main body is on the second floor, with independent cloakroom and bookroom. I live in the guest room." Su Rui was stunned for a moment, but unexpectedly he would take the initiative to propose to sleep in a separate room. This made her speech inexplicably relax, and her view of this man was a little complicated. He is domineering and strong, but in some details, he gives her enough respect and space. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's just the content of the agreement." He responded lightly, then walked to the kitchen, took out a bottle of water from the refrigerator and handed it to her. "Stay early and there is still a tough battle to fight tomorrow." Su Rui took the water and clicked a little head. She knew that tomorrow, her fight against Chen Hao and Xingyao Entertainment would be officially launched. Nothing happened overnight. The next morning, Su Rui was awakened by the sunlight shining outside the window. She woke up in a soft and comfortable bed, with a quilt that felt very touching. The strange environment made her feel dazed for a moment, and then everything from last night quickly returned to the ground. She got up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the city that had just woken up under her feet, feeling mixed emotions. After washing up, she changed into a white dress that was fucking and walked down the building. The exquisite Chinese breakfast was already prepared on the dining table, while Sun Sishu was sitting by the table, holding coffee in one hand and flipping through financial news on his tablet. The morning light shone on him, placing a soft gold edge on his cold silhouette. Seeing her come down, he put down the tablet and signaled her to sit down. "Eat breakfast." The two of them spent their breakfast silently, and the atmosphere was a bit subtle. Without last night's drama and deliberate role, this dull relationship pattern made Su Rui feel uncomfortable, like a real couple. This thought surprised her. She hurriedly threw it away, picked up her handbag. "I'll eat it, go to the company first." "I'll give it to you." Shu Siki stood up and picked up the key. "No need, I'll start the car by myself." Su Rui subconsciously refused. She needs some independent time to organize her thoughts. Sure glanced at her without any hesitation. "Be careful on the way." Leaving the apartment, Su Rui drove to Tanny Entertainment with her own car. Along the way, she opened the car and almost all the entertainment channels discussed the same thing: the mysterious boyfriend of Su Rui, the gold medalist of Tanny Entertainment. Yesterday at the Tanny Board of Directors, the words "my wife" by the People's Republic of China had been spread out by the troublemakers. Over the night, the news about Su Rui climbing to the rich door and being kept by the mysterious boss was very filthy. Various guesses and gossips pushed her to the forefront of discussion. Su Rui had already predicted this, and there was no flash of silk on his face. She knew that the choice of the Lu office to use this highly regulated way to publicize their relationships is to use the power of discussion to create for her and strengthen her position in the company. This is a chess and a wonderful chess. When she arrived at Dadian Art Entertainment, she was subjected to unprecedented goals. All the employees who saw her respectfully called her General Su, and there was no longer the slander and sympathy of yesterday in their eyes, but instead they were awe and reconciliation. Walking into the office, Assistant Mi immediately greeted her, her face full of excitement. "Sister Su Rui." "No, Su. Have you seen the news this morning? The press release we released yesterday about Chen Hao's ungrateful and unfaithfulness has been so effective. Now all the online people are criticized, saying that he is a white-eyed wolf. Xingyao's atmosphere is probably crazy." Su Rui clicked the head, which was in her prediction. She deeply understands the essence of war and knows how to first develop people and occupy the moral high ground. "What's the reaction of Xingyao?" she asked. "They sent a lawyer's letter saying that our allegations were a dictionary, and that the reporter meeting was going to be open this afternoon to clarify all speaks." Mizuna's voice was filled with a slight grief. "Clarification?" Su Rui sneered. "What are they going to clarify? Let them open it. The more they want to whitewash, the more Chen Hao's label of breach of confidence will be put on." She walked to the desk and sat down. "I inform that the internal test spectacle of the new star plan will be held in sync with the reporters of Xingyao this afternoon. I want all media to see that Chen Hao has left and can play as if it were." "Yes." Mi Zi was so impressed that she immediately turned around and made arrangements. Su Rui opened his computer and began to deal with the piles of files. With a thunderous attitude, she quickly integrated the company's internal resources. She first selected seedlings with excellent image and potential from several second and third-tier artists, as the first batch of training targets of the new star plan. Then, she called several familiar directors and producers with her own phone, and cleverly changed the top-level film resources that she originally wanted to give Chen Hao into a role that was more suitable for newcomers. Every step she took was precise and ruthless, like an experienced key player, rearranged her hunting field. Throughout the morning, her office was crowded with leaders from various departments lined up to report her work, and she was respectful. This is the change brought by power. At noon, her cell phone was hit. It was a strange number. She wanted to stop, but when she saw the number of land, she picked it up by chance. What came from the phone was Su Rai's voice, which was filled with anxiety. Rui, it's me. Are you okay? I've seen the news on the internet. Who is that man? Did you just find someone to report me? No, lawyer. Su Rui slammed him coldly, his temperament as if he was treating a stranger. I think there's nothing to talk to between me and you. If you call me to care about me, then there is no need. I'm very good, better than ever before. Rui, listen to me and explain it. Xiaotong and I, things are not what you think. It's her. It's too late. Su Rui cut him off again, his voice showing a grudge. I don't have the interest to know about your affairs. I just remind you one thing, as a lawyer, you should know more about the spirit of contract. Since you have chosen betrayal, you have to bear the consequences. Don't fight me again, otherwise, I don't mind letting my lawyer team have a good chat with you. After saying that, she stopped the phone without hesitation and blocked the number. For Su Rui, she had no love in her heart, only a heartwarming heart and contempt. However, after closing the phone, a question appeared in her mind. Hearing Su Rui's temperament, he seemed to want to put the responsibility on Lin Xiaotong. There is a crack between the male and female dogs? At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the reporters who were held by Xingyao Entertainment for Chen Hao will be called up at a time. Su Rui did not come to the venue alone, but sat in her office and watched through live broadcasts on the internet. At the same time, Tanny Entertainment's new star plan trial was also held in full swing in the studio next door. At the reporters' meeting, Chen Hao was wearing a white suit and tried hard to create an innocent image. He and Xingyao's vice president Lin Ruoyang sat shoulder to shoulder, and whispered to the lens, silently accusing Tanny Entertainment of pressure and unfairness against him, shaping himself into a victim who was unbearable and forced to find a way out. Lin Ruoyang was supplementing at the right time, and his remarks kept hinting that Su Rui used his power to exercise mental control and resource damage to Chen Hao, and even alluded to Su Rui's private life was not checked and he relied on inappropriate relations to gain power. Their performance was very popular, and they tried to guide the discussion and poured all the dirt on Su Rui and Tanny. Su Rui looked at the two faint faces on the screen coldly, and a cold curve appeared on the corner of her mouth. She knew they would come to this set. She picked up her cell phone and sent a message to the Public Security Bureau General, "It's okay to start." Just when Chen Hao cried and gained sympathy, the screen suddenly changed on the big screen of the audience. A high-definition audio, accompanied by clear subtitles, is heard throughout the venue. "Brother Hao, don't worry, I'm already calmed down here at Sister Rui. She offended Wang and Li Film for your new movie. Now many people in the circle are waiting to watch her laugh. You will just change jobs to Xingyao at this time, and the time will be fine." This sound is Chen Hao's former assistant. Then, a screenshot of the record appeared on the screen. The payee is this former assistant, and the payee is an affiliate of Xingyao Entertainment. The reporters were like fish that smelled bloody, and they were instantly boiling. The lights were flickering, and all the lenses were in line with Chen Hao and Lin Ruoyang, whose faces turned pale in an instant. This was undoubtedly a slap in the face, tearing them to pieces the carefully compiled victim script. Su Rui looked at the two panicked faces in the live broadcast screen, with no slight temperature in her eyes. This is just the beginning. She wants everyone who betrays her to pay the price of pain. And at this moment, her cell phone vibrated again, and it was a message from Xu Sishio. The content is simple, with only one picture. That was a hospital's exploration record. It is clearly shown above that during her hospitalization due to a car accident, Lin Xiaotong has visited her more than once. And that hospital is the private hospital under the Lu Group. A terrible thought took shape in Su Rui's brain in an instant. Is her misunderstanding related to Lin Xiaotong? The video record from the hospital under the Lu family was like a key of a wise man, and suddenly pried open the black box of Su Rui's memory. Lin Xiaotong frequently explored the facts after her car, and her misunderstanding that she was diagnosed as post-invasive dysfunction by a doctor. The two seemed to have an invisible line, which was instantly tightened. A bone-burning chilled her spine and climbed to the top. She always thought that the car was just an accident, and that blank memory was just an unfortunate post-mortem. But now it seems that behind all this, there seems to be a more terrifying possibility. If Lin Xiaotong's betrayal was not a temporary desire for profit, but had been accustomed to it for a long time, then would her misfortune be part of this tragedy? This thought made Su Rui feel cold and anxious. She forced herself to calm down and carefully recalled the points before and after the car. She only remembered that day she seemed to be visiting a very important person, and was in a very exciting mood, followed by the dazzling car lights and dramatic collisions. After waking up, she lay in the hospital, surrounded by Lin Xiaotong, who was crying, and Su Zakai, who was concerned about her face. Lin Xiaotong told her that she had an accident because of the work pressure that was too high and she was exhausted. At that time, she believed in Gu Pingmi and love. But now I think about it, all this is full of destruction. Su Rui's fingertips were icy. She stared at the picture posted by Xu Sixio on the screen of the mobile phone, and could not open the video for a long time. This man, he can always give her a knife that can break the truth at the most critical moment. How did he know these? How much did he know about her past? Just as she was in a state of confusion, the door of the office was pushed open by the excited Rice. General Su. All the big wins. Xingyao's reporters will mess up in the end. Now the entire network is mocking Chen Hao and Lin Ruiyang as the best star of the year. Xingyao's stock price began to dive after it opened. Mi Zi's face was filled with joy of winning. At the site of our Ring Star Plan trial, several mainstream media have also come to visit you, and ask how you can absolutely fight back. Su Rui took a deep breath, locked the screen of his phone, and pressed the exploration record and the surprise guesses that followed him into his heart. When she raised her head again, her face had recovered from her habitual coldness and appearance. Tell the media that I don't have time to accept visits now. Tianyi only focuses on cultivating powerful artists and has no time to jump on clowns' plays. Distribute information and photos of the best performers on the spectacle to them so that they can report more positive things. She knew very well that the most important thing at this moment was to ride the pursuit and shift the public's attention from the gossip to the power of the heavenly arts. I understand. Miyu immediately went to execute. The office has returned to peace. Su Rui leaned on the back of the chair, closed her eyes, and in the sea of brain, it was like a movie, flashing countless scenes of Lin Xiaotong. They were best friends since college, renting a house together, looking for a job together, and supporting each other in a prosperous and indifferent city in City A. She has never doubted this friendship. The funny thing is that she regards the other party as the most important person in her life, and the other party may be calculating how to push her into the depths from the beginning. Anger, betrayal, and deep fear drown her like a tide. She suddenly opened her eyes, and the flames of revenge were burning in her eyes. She wants to find out clearly, she must find out clearly. If her misfortune really has something to do with Lin Xiaotong, she vowed that she would make Lin Xiaotong pay a price that was thousands of times more painful than Chen Hao and Su Zakai. She picked up her cell phone and heard the phone call from Xu Sixio. The phone was connected almost immediately. See? The low voice of Xu Sixing came from the listening tube. Yeah. Su Rui's voice was a little sad. How did you get this? I have the right to check the system of the Luan hospital. I need more detailed information. Su Rui's voice was filled with a tremor that was hard to detect. I need to know all the diagnosis records, drug lists during my hospitalization, and the specific time and stay time of Lin Xiaotong every time she explored. Also, who was the attending doctor at that time? I needed to see him. The phone was silent for a few seconds, as if she was feeling the determination in her voice. Yes. Jisher's answer was simple and powerful. I will arrange everything tomorrow morning. What you need to do now is to calm your mind and not to be stubborn. I understand. Su Rui stopped the phone and felt that his heart was still beating fast. That night, Su Rui hardly closed his eyes. She sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of the top apartment, overlooking the city's lights, and there was a mess in the sea of her brain. It is difficult to distinguish between the past and the present screen. She felt like a person standing on the cliff, with a deep and invisible mist under her feet. The next day, Su Rui turned down all work arrangements and arrived at a private psychological clinic located in the suburbs of the city according to the address given by the Ministry of Justice. The environment here is quiet and has excellent privacy. Xu Sitsi had already been waiting there. He was wearing a casual outfit today, and he lost a few points of the lingering at the mall and a little more calm breath. He saw Su Rui's white face and the blue and black eyes, and his eyebrows were browsing without marks. He's right there. Xu Si pointed to a consulting room. His name is Zhang Bowen. He was a doctor who was responsible for your psychological rehabilitation that year, and a top-notch expert in neuropsychology in the country. I've already read all the information you want. Su Rui clicked his head, took a deep breath, pushed the door and walked in. In the consultation room, a gentleman in his 50s stood up and smiled gently at her. Miss Su, please sit down. We're meeting again. Su Rui looked at Dr. Zhang Bowen, and there was no memory about him in his brain. She sat down and opened the door to see Shandy and said, Dr. Zhang, I want to know the truth about my misunderstanding after the car accident that year. Zhang Bowen pushed the glass and his expression became serious. Miss Su, your situation was very special back then. Physiologically, your brain has not suffered serious physical injuries, that is, your loss is more from the psychological choose sexual forgetfulness. In order to protect you from the stimulation of some huge injustice, your brain actively closed that part of your memory. Creation? Su Rui chased, what kind of injure? Isn't it just a car? Zhang Bowen pondered for a moment, picked up a sealed file bag from the table and handed it to her. This is your complete illness that year, including all the recordings of medication and recordings for hypnosis treatment. Mr. Xu said you have the right to know the truth. Su Rui took the file bag with his hands trembling and opened it. A thick piece of information inside recorded everything she had when she was hospitalized that year. She turned to the page where she recorded her pupils, and her pupils were tight. In addition to the commonly used sedative and nutritious medicines, there is a drug name that is circled out by red pen. This is a powerful hypnotic drug, Zhang Bowen explained. Usually, it is only used in patients with extreme uncertainty. But your condition shows that the frequency and dosage of this drug have increased abnormally in the second week of your hospitalization. This period of time coincides with the time when your friend Miss Lin Xiaotong has been exploring frequently. Su Rui felt that his blood was about to solidify. You mean? Her voice was so cool. I can't make a conclusion. But if this drug is used overdose, it is possible to interfere with the formation and extraction of memory, and even deepen the memory confusion of the victims with the cooperation of specific psychological hints. Zhang Bowen's speech was very cautious. More importantly, I looked through the records of the nurse's website that year. Every time I injected this drug into you, it was after Miss Lin's exploration. She always asked the nurse to inject a sedative agent on the grounds that Su Rui is unstable and needs rest. A terrible truth is about to emerge. Lin Xiaotong used her trust in medical staff to practice medicine in the name of exploration, with the purpose of interfering with her memory and making her forget something. Su Rui tightly clamped the illness, and his fingers turned white due to force. She picked up the hypnotic healing tape. What's in here? It was some of the words you said under the hypnosis state at that time. Zhang Bowen's expression became a little confused. At that time, your memory was very confused, and the potential was filled with fear and anxiety. I tried to guide you to tell you what happened before the car, but every time you touch and focus, you would show extreme resistance and pain. In the recording, you mentioned several words repeatedly. What word? Su Rui's heart suddenly rose to his throat. Whose name? Zhang Bowen looked at her and said word by word, Ru CG. Su Rui was hit by lightning and his whole body froze. She looked at Zhang Bowen in disbelief, then subconsciously turned her head, looking at the blurry figure outside through the frosted glass in the consultation room. Shu Si. Her misunderstanding is actually related to him? Could it be that important person she was going to see before the car? She trembled and put the recording tape into the player and pressed the playback key. After the rustling current sound, her own vague and broken sound was transmitted, full of fear and hope. The rings, fake, all fake. Why, have to cheat me? Ru Sitsi, you cheat. The sound was surprisingly similar to what she shouted to the boy in the rain 10 years ago. There was a buzzing sound in Su Rui's brain, and countless fragmented pictures were coming like a tide. A thin boy wearing a white shirt, a car under the sun, a hand hiding in a book, a contract about a director, and one, at the corner of the airport, she saw with her eyes the back of his slim relationship with another girl. Those memories that had been blocked for 10 years, those first thoughts she had disappeared, the truths that were concealed by drugs and literacy, at this moment, were like a flood that broke through the dam. It turned out that she didn't forget him because of the car. But because of that misfortune, the heartbreaking betrayal made her choose to close this memory under the huge impact of the car. Lin Xiaotong took advantage of her fragility and collapse at that time, and used drugs and literacy to bury this memory in a complete way, and pushed Su Zakai to her, occupying the nest. Su Rui suddenly stood up and rushed out of the consultation room. She stood in front of Shu Sixio, her eyes were red and her body was shaking. She looked at him, looking at this familiar and unfamiliar face, and she asked in her voice with a crying voice and a texture, "You knew it a long time ago, didn't you? You knew everything from the beginning. Why didn't you tell me?" Seeing her painful look, his eyes filled with regret and self-responsibility. He stretched out his hand and wanted to touch her, but stopped in midair again. "I'm sorry, Rui Rui." His voice was so painful, "I'm afraid you can't bear it." "Can't bear it?" Su Rui smiled, laughing harder than crying. "So you just look at me like a fool, being kept in the dark, being played with by those people? So, do you want to protect me or control me?" Her question was like a knife, piercing into Shu Sixio's heart. He looked at the familiar stubbornness and pain in her eyes, just like the rainy day 10 years ago. "Rui Rui, listen to me and explain." "I don't want to hear it." Su Rui took a step back and opened the distance from him. The restored memory not only has a sweet past, but also a sense of betrayal that penetrates deep into the bones. She couldn't tell whether the man in front of her was the god who saved her or pushed her into another purified devil. She turned around and ran out of the clinic, just trying to escape from this place that suffocated her. The Sir, Lu, did not catch up with him. He just stood there, looking at her desperate back, clenched his fists tightly on his side. He knew that this day would come early. And he must give her time and also give herself a chance to unravel the misunderstanding of betrayal that had been sealed for 10 years. After leaving the psychological clinic, Su Rui did not return to the company, nor did she return to the so-called new home. She drove around the streets of City A without destination, and walked through the scenery outside the window back quickly, unable to take away the torrent of memory in her brain. The sweetness of the first love and the sting of being betrayed, the confusion after the loss and the shock after the truth were revealed, the 10-year life twists and recesses occurred at this moment, which made her almost breathless. The Sage. This name was once a synonym for all the beautiful words of her girlish age, but later became the deepest thorn in her heart. She remembered it, everything was remembered. That summer, he was a high-level student who transferred to their class, cold and arrogant, and only showed his gentleness to her. They took a walk in the library together, took a walk at the dusk exercises together, and agreed to be admitted to the same university. He would clumsily deliver handmade wood sculptures on her birthday. She would secretly cheer him on the field while he was playing basketball. That time, it was as pure as a transparent crystal. However, all this came to an abrupt end on the eve of his about to leave the country. She accidentally heard a classmate's discussion, saying that the Chinese family wanted to send him abroad, and arranged for him a marriage partner for his client. She didn't believe it, and ran to the airport to find him like crazy, and saw him holding a beautiful girl she didn't know. What followed was the sudden change in her family. Her father's company was destroyed. Overnight, she turned from a little princess who was loved to become a down-and-out girl with a huge debt. Under the double blow, she was in a daze and had a car accident on the way to see an uncle who could help her father. Looking back now, every sentence of the comfort words Lin Xiaotong said to her back then was filled with vicious hints. She kept telling her, "Rui Rui, men are unreliable, especially rich children like Xu Xixi. There is only benefits in their world. Forget him, start over, Suzuki is a good man, he will sincerely treat you." It turned out that Lin Xiaotong was jealous of her from the beginning, jealous of her wealthy family and her first boyfriend. Therefore, at the most vulnerable moment when Lu Cixi left and her family fell, Lin Xiaotong took advantage of the situation and not only used drugs and tampered with her memory, but also reasonably pushed her towards Suzuki, allowing herself to enjoy her trust and dependence with the attitude of savior. At the same time, she also firmly controlled her in her palms. What a terrible calculation. What a vicious intention. Su Rui parked the car on the riverside, and the cold wind poured into the car window, blew her hair, and couldn't blow away the overwhelming hatred in her heart. She hated Lin Xiaotong, her viciousness. She also hated Suzuki, his cowardice and betrayal. But at this moment, the most complicated emotion in her heart was about Xu Xi. He came back, and in a strong, unspeakable attitude, he entered her already terrible life. He helped her revenge, and led her to the courage and capital to turn over from the bottom of the valley. But why did he hide the truth? If he hadn't betrayed her, why hadn't he ever contacted her for 10 years? If he really loves her, why did he choose to leave when she needed him the most? Who is the girl he hugged at the airport? Why did he not tell me that year? These problems were like countless harnesses, which caught her heart and made her suffer. She could no longer see him as a pure business partner as before. The restored memory makes the relationship between them more complicated and tricky than at any time. I don't know how long I sat on the river until the night fell and the lights first came up. Su Rui redrove the car and drove to an old apartment in the south of the city that she had known for being unparalleled and had deliberately forgotten for a long time. This is the place she rented with Lin Xiaotong after her parents passed away. Later, she became successful in her career and moved into a high-end apartment in the city center. Lin Xiaotong never moved out on the grounds that she has lived in a habit and has no choice but to live in the neighborhood here. Su Rui was also moved by this, and felt that he was an old man who thought about it. Thinking about it now, I just think it's not as good as a thorn. She also has the key here. She wanted to come back and see if she could find some spider horses that she ignored, about Lin Xiaotong. The apartment building is very old and the lights on the floor are dim. Su Rui walked to the familiar door with his memory, took out the key, and inserted it into the lock hole lightly. The door should open with a sound. The room was pitch black, and the air was filled with a smell of dust. It seemed that no one had lived there for a while. Since the incident with Suzuki was exposed, Lin Xiaotong probably moved away. Su Rui did not turn on the light, and walked into the home that once filled their laughter with the faint light of her cell phone. Everything is the same as in the memory, warm and simple. But at this moment, when Su Rui looked at him, he could only feel that there were virtual calculations everywhere. She walked straight into Lin Xiaotong's room. The room is not big and it is cleaned up very well. There was also a photo of them on the bookshelf. The two girls in the photo were smiling extremely hard, leaning against the head in a close manner. Su Rui looked at her innocent face in the photo and felt that her heart was like a knife. She reached out and wanted to sweep the frame to the ground, but finally she held it back. Her eyes searched carefully in the room. She didn't know what she was looking for, or maybe it was just a straightforward feeling. She pulled the drawer at the desk, which contained some stationery and notebooks. She flipped through a book with beautiful words from Lin Xiaotong, recording some daily events in design spirit. It doesn't look like anything unusual. She was unwilling to give up and opened the cabinet again. There were a few clothes that Lin Xiaotong often wore in the locker, and the style was as gentle and elegant as ever. On the bottom of the cabinet, there is an old wooden box with a lock. Su Rui felt a little moved. She remembered that Lin Xiaotong once said that the box was her most precious thing in it, which was her secret garden. She squatted down and tried to pull the lock, which was very tight. She looked around and found a hard hair clip in the pen on the desk. She learned the plot in the movie, straightened her hair, and carefully inserted it into the lock hole to try. After striking it for a long time, she heard a light sound of cant and the lock was actually opened by her. Su Rui took a deep breath and opened the box slowly. There is no jewelry head in the box, only a thick piece of letters, a few diary, and a book. She picked up the photo book first. When she flipped the first page, her pupils suddenly became tight. What was covered in it was not their photo, but the photo of Yu Xixio. From school uniform photos from high school, to life photos from studying abroad later, to elite photos on financial magazines after returning to China, all of them are all him. Below each photo, the date and mood are written in beautiful words. September 3, 2015, Qing. He turned to our class. He was like a prince coming out of the comics. I seemed to have a crush on him. On April 12, 2016, rain. Why can he only see Su Rui? Where am I inferior to her? Is my family background? October 5, 2024, Een. He is back, and he is even more dazzling. But there is still no me in his eyes. Su Rui, why are you so easy to do? It turns out that Lin Xiaotong has been secretly lying about Xu Xixio since high school. Her jealousy for herself began at that time. Su Rui's fingers trembled slightly due to shock. She picked up those diaries again. The content in the diary made her even more shocked. It recorded in detail how Lin Xiaotong planned step by step, how to use the double blows of her family's downfall and failure, and gave psychological hints to her, how to join forces with Lin Ruoyang and instigate Chen Hao, and even how to talk about Su Zakai without being erratic and snatch him away from her side. The last page of the diary, written not long ago. Su Rui, you must have never imagined it. All the love, friendship, and career you cherished have been destroyed by my hands. You must be in pain now, right? That's right. This is the price for you to take away the people I like. But this is not enough. I won't let you leave Sidious so easily. I will let you lose your reputation and have nothing. I want to see if the Sun Sea will be interested in you when you see your wolfish look. The lines and the characters are filled with twisted pleasure and evil curse. Su Rui was trembling with anger. She never thought that a person could be so vicious. What Lin Xiaotong treats her was not jealousy, but hatred that penetrated into her bones. She resisted the urge to tear the diary into pieces and put everything back into the box. These are all the iron certificates of Lin Xiaotong's crime. She wants to make her pay the legal price for everything she does. Just as she was about to close the box, a letter from the bottom of the box caught her attention. The envelope of the letter was yellow, without a signature on it, only Su Rui. But the letter is not opened. She picked up the letter in confusion and looked at the familiar and powerful words on the envelope, and her heart suddenly jumped. It's the word Rusi. This is a letter written to her 10 years ago by Xu Si. Why is it here? Why didn't Lin Xiaotong hand it over to her? Su Rui shook his hands and tore open the envelope. On the letter, it was written by the young man, with a few words written by a few young pens. Rui, I see the letter as if I met. When you saw this letter, I was already on the plane flying to the United States. Please tell me that I didn't tell you. Something happened at home that I could not resist, and I must leave. I cannot explain it to you because I am afraid I will not be able to leave. I know you will go to the airport to find me today, so I let Xiaotong pass this letter to you. Rui, please believe me, I went to the United States not for any marriage, it was just the smoke emitted from my home. The girl I hugged at the airport was my cousin and she came to give it to me. My heart for you has never changed. I don't know how long I'm leaving, but I promise you that I will definitely come back. Wait for me, Rui. When I handle everything, I will come back and stand openly by your side, and we will make an appointment to take the A-level exam together. Please wait for me. I love you, I believe it. July 10, 2015. At the end of the letter, there was a photo. In the photo, it is a photo of the young boy, Shizu, and a gentle girl. The girl's eyebrows and eyes are somewhat similar to Shizu. The truth, at this moment, was like a dazzling flash, planning to break the haze that had lasted for 10 years. It turns out that he has never betrayed. It turned out that all of this was just a misunderstanding that had been carefully planned by Lin Xiaotong for 10 years. She held off this letter that was enough to explain everything, and watched her heart breaking by mistake, collapsed by the desperate hope, and finally pushed her into the black hole of memory. The water could no longer be suppressed and rolled down Su Rui's face. She held the letter that had been heard for 10 years tightly, squatted on the ground, crying bitterly. For the 10 years I missed, for the youth buried by lies, and for the man who had been silently waiting for her for 10 years. She cried so hard that she was not allowed to pull her back from the collapsed emotions until her phone sounded. It's the true. She looked at the name that was dancing on the screen, wiped her eyes, and connected the phone. Where are you? The phone had conveyed his anxious and worried voice. Obviously, the day she lost contact made him feel worried. Su Rui sniffed, and his voice was still in a heavy crying voice, and he said clearly, Rusi, I'm waiting for you. She didn't say where, but she knew he would find her. Because it took 10 years between them and they never really got separated. After shutting down the phone, Su Rui stood up and carefully put the wooden box and all the certificates inside. She walked to the window and opened the window. The evening breeze blew on her face, bringing a sense of turmoil which made her head feel unprecedentedly awake. Lin Xiaotong, Lin Ruiyang, Su Zakai, Chen Hao. She will not let anyone go of anyone who has hurt her. And this time, she was no longer a lonely army. Because she knew that there was someone coming towards her.